Today I have a book to read to you. It's called Thank You, Santa, and I would like to share with you how you can use this book as an instructional resource for teaching writing. All right, whenever you're teaching students writing, one of the important things that you do is you teach them that there is a title page and there is also a dedication page. And typically when my students complete the dedication page, it's at the end of the book once they are putting the book together to publish. All right, so let's take a look at this book. January. Dear Santa, thank you for all the presents, especially the knitting needles and balls of wool. They are just what I need because I'm sick in bed with a cold. But I'm not bored because I'm knitting lots of squares. My mom showed me how to cast on and how to do plain and purl stitches. Tomorrow, I'm going to knit a square with different colors in it. Love, Samantha. P.S. I hope you had a good Christmas too. P.P.S. Can you knit? P.P.P.S. How are the reindeer? So in this story, you're going to see that the structure is in a letter format. We'll have a month, which is essentially the date. We have the salutation. We have the body of the letter. We have the complimentary closing. And then we also have a P.S. And a long time ago, before computers were around and people wrote letters, they would, if they forgot to say something in their letter, they would have a P.S. And then if there was something else that they wanted to share, then there was a P.P.S. And then if there was a third thing to share, it was a P.P.P.S. And the P.S. simply stands for postscript. Okay, so after you have written, after the text is done, then it's a postscript. So whenever you're using this to teach students, you're going to read this and then you're going to see if they can find a pattern. And I've already shared with you this text structure. So now students are just going to be looking for that pattern. February. Dear Samantha, thank you for the lovely letter. Hundreds of thousands of children write to me before Christmas, but I don't hear from many of them after Christmas. I'm sorry to hear that you are not well. Our littlest reindeer is ill too. He has a runny nose and a bad cough. Mrs. Claus and I are taking turns to keep him company all night. Love, Santa. P.S. We had an excellent Christmas. A snowy owl visited us on Christmas Day. P.P.S. No, I can't knit. My mom never taught me, and Mrs. Claus has forgotten how. Isn't that a pity? And March. Dear Santa, I hope the littlest reindeer is much, much better. I've sewn the squares into a jumper for him. Perhaps it will keep his chest warm. I hope it fits. On Sunday, we went to the zoo. I couldn't see a snowy owl anywhere. I said hello to the polar bear, but he just lay there with his eyes shut. I think he's very unhappy. Dad says our weather is too hot for polar bears. When I got home, I put on 3 jumpers and my hat and scarves and gloves, and I lay in the sun for an hour. Now, I know what it must feel like to be a polar bear in Australia. Love, Samantha. P.S. What do snowy owls look like? P.P.S. What other animals are there in the North Pole? P.P.P.S. Perhaps I should teach you how to knit. Okay, so on this page, students should identify that there is a specific pattern, a specific text structure as the one that we identified at the beginning of the story. So we have the date, the salutation, the body, and notice the body of this letter is getting longer. We have the complimentary closing, and then we have the postscript. And you'll let your students know that nowadays we don't typically use the postscript because whenever people write a letter, oftentimes it's on a computer, and then we can go back and add that information into the body of the text. Other things that you'll start to mention to students is that you'll notice here that there is the word much in italics, And the authors always can italicize or they can boldface words that they want to stress. Okay. You also notice that here, Dear Santa and Love Samantha is consistently written in cursive font. Alrighty. When you are reading the story, you're not going to share all of this information at one time. Typically, what I do is read the story aloud to the students so that they can enjoy the story, enjoy the pictures. And then when I use it as an instructional resource, then I start back at the beginning, and then I can bring in some of the background knowledge that they've already discussed that we've learned from the story, and then start including different text features, different text structures, things that the author and that the illustrator do whenever they are writing a story. One of the other things that you'll notice here, if you're talking about paragraph structure, is that the paragraphs are getting longer, okay, or the body of the paragraph of this, the body of the letter is getting longer, and then you'll notice that each of the paragraphs is talking about something specific. Now, if I go back to January, this one is easy because it's just a one paragraph here, but on this one, the author says, "Thank you for all the presents, especially the knitting needles and balls of wool. They are," and then, so there's your topic sentence. "They are just what I need because I'm sick in bed and with a cold." So there's a detailed sentence that tells about the reason why the person is very thankful for those knitting materials. Then the person, Samantha, goes further and says, "But I'm not bored because I'm knitting lots of squares." So she gives an example of what she's doing with the resources, the details. And another example, "My mom showed me how to cast on and how to do a plain and purl stitches." And then here's the concluding sentence. "Tomorrow I'm going to knit a square with different colors in it." So if you are highlighting, and I strongly recommend highlighting, you can, what I do is I will pull the text off and I will put it on the Promethean board or on a piece of paper, and students will actually use highlighters or colored pencils, and they would underline this topic sentence and they would color it green. Okay, then they're going to have the detail sentence, and that detail sentence is what they're going to color yellow. And then we have some examples that support the detail sentence, and those are colored red. Okay, or you could use a pink because red's kind of dark on the highlighting. And then finally, that last sentence is a concluding sentence, and again, that is a green sentence because it circles back to recapture the topic sentence. So when I'm teaching paragraph structure, that's what I do. First, I start with the topic sentence. I use the detail sentence. I don't start with any example sentences yet. If you're teaching, first and second, actually not first graders. First graders just writing sentences, but second graders are starting to write those detail sentences. And then, by the time that they're end of second grade into third grade, they're going to be adding some examples. And those examples is what helps to make that paragraph a very strong paragraph that shows lots of detail. All right, so I have some notes here that I'm looking at. The other thing I wanted to point out is when we are looking at February, you'll notice here, this is a great way to teach organization. So the author, Samantha, goes back to Santa's letter and mentions information about Santa's letter. Then she says on Sunday, she talks about what she did. And then when she got home, this is what she did. Okay, so on Sunday, she talked about going to the zoo. And then when she got home, she put 3 jumpers and her hat and her gloves and scarf on, and she laid in the sun. All right, so this is also an opportunity to teach organization and how our brain likes the organization because it doesn't like chaos. All right, so let's go to the next page. Here, this date is in April. "Dear Samantha, the jumper fits perfectly. Here is a special thank you from the littlest reindeer." And notice the little hoof print. I thought that was cute. So again, Santa is going back to Samantha's letter, acknowledging what she has written. Now, Santa is going to share more information about the reindeer. "He's quite all right now, thank goodness, but I don't think we'll let him pull the sleigh again next Christmas. He catches cold so easily. I haven't told him yet, because I know he will be very disappointed. And then Santa goes on to talk about other things. There are lots of animals here in the North Pole. Mrs. Claus and I often watch them, and she does drawings of them. One of our favorites is the Arctic fox. In the winter, its long, thick fur is pure white. It has furry feet and a bushy tail that keeps it warm at night. Love, Santa. And then some more of the postscript. All right, so you'll see that this book is fabulous for teaching students about letter format, the text structure, also about using, if you look down here, there's again different types of print, so italics, bold and boldface. And then you'll notice here, Dear Santa, these are different fonts. Also, this is a great book for teaching students how to respond to other people. So you start out thanking them for their letter, and you address something that they discussed in their letter, and then you can add some new information. Okay. Now, I know at the holidays, lots of people share gifts, and this is a great opportunity to take a book like this and teach students how to write a thank you letter or thank you note to someone else. Okay. So I'm just going to continue through here. I thought this one was cute. Dear Santa, it's the middle of winter now, and I'm hoping for snow. Notice here that the month is July. So whenever you're reading this with the students will be thinking, it's July, but I'm hoping for snow. It's in the middle of winter, so I don't understand how we can be in July and also have snow, right? Because in the Northern Hemisphere, we don't have that situation. So then this might be an opportunity to talk about how the Southern Hemisphere, they could be having snow. So did this author write this story and living in the Southern Hemisphere? I don't know. So those would be some other things to do as a detective reading the story to figure out some clues. But Mom says it hasn't snowed here in 20 years. So she helped me cut up paper into tiny pieces. Then we emptied bucketfuls of paper over our heads and had our very own snowstorm in the living room. Love, Samantha. And then it goes on here to talk about some additional questions that Samantha had. All right, so here we look at the emperor penguins, which is something Samantha addressed in her PS. And then look, we go right into August. So Santa again is going back to Samantha's letter and discussing what it is that she was talking about, sharing additional information. And so whenever students would write thank you letters, then that is exactly what they would do. They would go back to the person who gave them the gift, thank them for the gift, share with them what it is that they are doing with the gift, how it has been helpful to them, what they appreciate about it. The person could then, if they choose to, ask a question of the person who gave a gift, or just go ahead and sign off. If you're doing a pen pal or a letter exchange with other people, then that would be a great opportunity to include another paragraph asking some questions. All right, so here again is September. And then we go into October. And here we go into November. And this one here I like to read because I want to show this as another opportunity to be looking at text and how you can use it for other literary elements. So again, November, Dear Santa. This is a short letter. And here are some early Christmas presents. I hope Mrs. Claus likes the paint box and you like the knitting book, wool and needles. There's also a special present for the littlest reindeer. The scarf, woolly cap, and booties will keep him as warm as toast, especially if he wears his jumper. All right, so keep him as warm as toast. That's a simile. And if you have younger students, they may not understand what as warm as toast means. If you have English language learners or learners who are language deficient, you'll want to make certain that you take time to explain exactly what that means. Okay, so we'll keep him as warm as toast. And if someone is not familiar, with what toast is, that could be a vocabulary word because most people may call it bread and not exactly toast, or what a toaster is, right? And then here we have December, and Santa promised. So here you can see the sweater that Samantha knitted. And then here, there was a question that Samantha had, or a concern that she had about the polar bear. And notice up here with the polar bear, there's lots of snow, but look where they're living. So definitely this family lives in the tropical area with those palm trees. All right, so that is the book, Thank You, Santa. So when you are using this book as an instructional resource, first go through the book, read through it yourself several times. And then what I do is I write down little sticky notes, okay? And I put these little sticky notes, as you can see, on the different pages, okay? And that way I know what it is I want to talk about whenever I get to that page. First, read the book as an enjoyable resource. Read the book as an opportunity for students just to sit back and to listen, to enjoy the language, to enjoy the pictures, to enjoy the story. Then I encourage you to go back and use this as an instructional resource. Whenever you have a piece of children's literature, you can use it in many, many, many different ways. And so when you're teaching, just focus on one aspect. So if you're teaching letter writing, focus on the letter writing, that text structure. If you're using this to teach paragraph writing, then focus specifically on that. Don't be afraid to lift the text. And when I say lift the text, what I mean is that you actually type the text onto a piece of paper and then you print it off for students, or you put it on the Promethean board or your display board that you would have, and then you actually write or annotate on top of that. If the students actually have this piece of text in front of them, then they can also use it as a resource to practice reading, because they've heard it read to them with you once. You've probably read it again, and it's another opportunity that they can read, and they can now read this on their own. When I am done with my books for instruction, what I like to do is to put them in a tub, and that tub is called Dr. Durbin's Hot Picks. And what happens is the students, they really enjoy going to my tub during some silent reading time, and they choose those books that we've been reading together in class, and they use that book as a silent reading opportunity. And they can go back to it. They remember things that we've been talking about. If I've been creating an anchor chart with a letter, we've labeled the different parts of the letter, the date, the salutation, the body, the complimentary closing. We've labeled everything so students can use that as a resource whenever they are writing letters. So I encourage you to use this book to teach writing. You could definitely teach the different reading skills as well as I've shared with you in here. This book is called Thank You, Santa. It's written by Margaret Wild. It's a great book to use as an instructional resource for teaching letter writing. And it's something that you can do, throughout the year. So there are other books that are available. And, one of the things that I always ask students is, where do you think that the author got the idea to write this story? And we'll talk about that. And students will, with this, they can say, well, you know what? A person received some gifts from Santa and she wanted to show her appreciation. So that might be the reason why this author had the idea to write this book to show her appreciation to Santa for all the gifts that she had. And then, of course, who doesn't want to ask Santa some questions? And then that correspondence going back and forth. All right. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and go out and get this book. This book is by Scholastic. That's the publisher. And so you can check on the Amazon to see if it's there. But at the very least, go to your Scholastic. Your school should have a Scholastic organization so that you can order those books there. Scholastic.com. All right. And again, thank you for attending. My name is Dr. Annette Durbin, and I am from the Blue Ribbon Teacher. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Share this with your friends, with your colleagues, with others who are interested in instructional resources to support learners at school. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.